Hi guys, so we are working on the 3.1 through 3.3 packet for story problems. And so we're going to pick and choose some problems through here and work on them. And then I'll give you some problems for your activity. And then the remainder of the problems will be your homework. So we'll start over here. And let's start with number 22. So number 22 says 14 minus the product. 14 minus the product of 3 and a number is 26. So if we use our hint words that we got down, back in, not the last chapter, but the chapter before that, we were working on converting verbal sentences to equation or expressions. Well, to make that an equation, we just need that is. Is means equal in this case. So for number 26, or 22, I'm sorry, 22, we'll have 14 minus the product of, and anytime I hear the product of, the sum of, the difference of, that's kind of like a big statement there. So that tells me to use parentheses. So the product of, product means multiplication, 3 and a number. So I'm multiplying 3 times a number, and I get to pick what I want to call that number, whether it's N or J or S, that's your choice. Okay, then it says is, so that means equals 26. Now, not only do I have to write the verbal sentence as an equation, but I also have to solve it. Remember, with order of operations, we start inside, so this would be 3 times N is 3N. Then I want to keep my variable on the left-hand side, but I want to move my constant over. That gives me 12. Then I want to get rid of my coefficient. So N equals -4. So I wrote my verbal sentence as an equation, and then I used my methods from 3.1 through 3.3 to solve it. Okay. So the next thing, let's go to number 27. Number 27, it says 15 people volunteer for a park cleanup. The number of volunteers increases by 7 people each month for several months. After how many months will there be 50 volunteers? So let's start with what we know. Okay. We know right now that there are 15 volunteers. That's what we have right now. We know that this number is going to increase. That means addition. By 7 people each month. So we know it's going to increase by 7 people, but for how many months? Well, since we don't know that, that's a variable. Because in the first month, that'd be 7. In the second month, that'd be 14. So I'd need to multiply those. And in the end, I want 50 volunteers. So I started with 15. It's going to increase by 7 each month. Anytime you have an each or a per, it usually has a variable with it because it has to be multiplied to get that answer, that piece. Now let's solve. Keep the variables on the left. Subtract the constant. Divide by the coefficient. X equals 5. But this is a story problem, so 5 what? Let's go back up here. What did 5 represent? Or what did X represent? We had 15 people. We were gaining 7 people each month. So this is 5 months. Okay? All right, let's turn the page. Sorry. This time we'll go to number 13. Now this should be a review for us because we did this in the last section. It gives us the perimeter and it wants us to find X. It doesn't even ask for the side lengths. It just wants X. So we know to find perimeter, we're going to add all the sides. So it would be like side 1 plus side 2 plus side 3 gives me my perimeter. So in this case, I know my perimeter is 29. I'm going to say side 1 is 7. I'm going to call side 2 X plus 2. And I'm going to call side 3 X. Now, if we use our foldable from solving 3.1 through 3.3, no distributing, no fractions or decimals, combine like terms. Well, I can combine like terms on the right because I've got an x here and an x here. So that means there are two x's, and I also know that there's a 7 and a 2, so that's 9. So I've got 2x plus 9 equals 29. Okay, now I like my variables on the left. My constants on the right. Get rid of your coefficient. X equals 10. Kind of a messy 0 there. Okay. So that's number 13. That's number 13. And again, we did that in the last section. Okay. Let's do number 19. Number 19. It says a plumber charges $30 per hour and $42 for each hour of overtime. For a job, the plumber works 3 regular hours, H overtime hours, and charges $195 for new parts. The total amount of the bill for the job is $390. Write and solve an equation to find the number of overtime hours the plumber worked. Okay, well, we know for sure that the bill cost me $390. So I might as well just go ahead and fill that in. I know it equals 390. I also know he gets paid for regular hours, and parts. Now, let's talk about those regular hours. It says he gets $30 per hour, and he worked for 3 hours. So if you were working on the job, and you worked for 3 hours, and you know you got 30 hours for each one, or $30 for each one of those hours, you would multiply those two. 3 times 30 to get your total. So here, we know that we're going to take our pay, $30 per hour, times the 3 hours we worked. Let's talk about overtime hours. He gets paid $42 for overtime hours, but it says we don't know how many of those he put in. We do know we're going to have to multiply them though, okay? So we want to stick that H beside him. And then we had to pay him $195 for new parts. Now I'm ready to clean this up. Now I don't have any distributing, but I do have some cleanup that I can do here. This would be 90. And I know that I clean up the left-hand side to combine like terms, so that would be 285. My variable's already on the left, so I want to get my constant on the right. Which would give me a little rusty in my mental math today. 105. Oh, goodness gracious, I should have known that. And then I need to divide to get rid of that coefficient, which gives me 2.5. Now remember, what did H mean up here? He was getting $40 per overtime hours. So I need to label that. Overtime hours, not just hours, because that could look like regular hours. So we want to make sure we label that correctly. Okay, so that was number 19. That was number 19. Let's turn the page. This time, we're going to do number 17 on the next page. Number 17. It says, negative 13 times a number plus 20 is equal to negative 11 times the number plus 38. Negative 13 times a number plus 20 is equal to negative 11 times the number plus 38, okay? So let's just start piece by piece of how we read it. Okay, negative 13 times a number plus 20 is equal to negative 11 times the number, remember we used n, plus 38. Okay. Now we can clean this up a little bit. This would be negative 13n plus 20 equals negative 11n plus 38. We don't have any combining like terms, and we don't have any distributing, but we do want to get our variables all on the left-hand side. And I want to get my constant on the right. And then I want to get rid of my coefficient. And remember, all they wanted us to do here was write the verbal sentence and solve. No label involved because it really wasn't a real life situation. Excuse me. Okay, so that was number 17. All right, let's go on to number 21. Now 21, again, should be a little bit of a review for us, okay, because we've done some of these problems before in our last section. Now, this does say find the perimeter of the triangle or rectangle, and it says the sides of the triangle are equal in length. Okay, so let's think about that. If the left side of the triangle is the same as the right side of the triangle, that means 9x minus 14 is the same as 5x plus 38. Or I could write that as 9x minus 14 is the same as, which means equal to, 5x plus 38. Okay, and we know that with a rectangle it would be like that too. The top of my rectangle and the bottom of my rectangle would be equal. The left side and the right side of my rectangle would be equal. So if we have one like that, we could do it this same way. No distributing, no combining like terms. Let's get my x's on the left. Let's get my constants on the right. Get rid of my coefficient. And there's my x. It doesn't want side lengths. It just, oh wait, I take that back. It says find the perimeter of the triangle or rectangle. So yes, this is x, but now I need to sub it in to one of the sides. Now, you might be asking, why do I just have to do it to one of the sides? Well, the directions told me that all the sides were equal. So if I find this guy, it should be the same as this guy. It should be the same as the bottom. If all the sides are the same, I can just multiply it by 3 in the triangle. So if I sub this back in, this would be 9 times 13 minus 14, which would be 117 minus 14, which is 103. So that means all 3 sides of that triangle are 103. So now if I take that times 3, because there's 3 sides and perimeter, you add up all the sides, or if the sides are equal, you could take 3 times the sides. So my answer is 309 units. Make sure you label. Okay, so that was number 21. That was number 21. So let's go to buying flowers. Buying flowers. So it says, you're buying flowers to hand out at a school dance. Roses cost $30 for a dozen, but cost more if bought individually. With the money you have, you can buy 7 dozen and 4 single roses, or 64 single roses. How much is 1 rose, and how much money do you have? Okay, all right. Well, let's talk about what I can do, because remember, this is just like that. This is just like this triangle project or triangle problem, because it's saying we could either do the 7 dozen and 4 single roses. I have enough money for that. or I can do 64 single roses. So meaning my money would be equal to either one of those sides. So what I'm going to do here on 23 is I'm going to say, okay, I could buy 7 of the dozen price and 4 of the single price. That's how much I have money for. Or they should be the same because I'm using all of my money either way. I could buy 64 of the singles. Okay. Now, we know a little bit of that because we don't want two variables here. So if we look back into our paragraph, it says roses cost $30 for a dozen, meaning I don't need this variable because I know a dozen roses cost me $30. So if I buy 7 of them, I'm going to have to multiply. If I clean that up, that's 210. Whoops. I want my variable to stay on the left side, so I'm going to subtract this 210 over, and I'm going to move my 64s all at once. And if I divide by negative 60, I get S equals 3.5. Now, normally I wouldn't be okay with decimals, right? Usually I say decimals aren't okay, but this is a real life situation. So, and we're talking about S meaning how much it costs for a single rose. So that means $3.5, I'd actually call that $3.50. So that's the cost of a single rose. And then it also wants to know how much money do you have. Well, remember, it doesn't matter which side you pick because it's equal. The easiest one would probably put it into the 64. So if I took that 64 times $3.50, my answer would be I have $224 total. Okay, so that was number 23. That was number 23. All right, so that gives you an idea of how to work those sections of that homework packet. I'll assign some for an activity, and then you'll work the rest for your homework.